All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the podcast of the Dark Future. My name is John the Wise, and I have with me Luke the Goon, aka the Dark Future.
What's going on, guys? How you doing, John?
Doing well, buddy. Good to see you again. I know we've been on a slight hiatus because I started my Cyberpunk game, but here we are.
Yeah, it's been a little while, but we got quite a bit to talk about.
Yeah, we got a lot to talk about, new RPGs and upcoming guests and all kinds of cool stuff. But before we get into that, I just wanted to shoot the shit with my boy because we haven't talked to each other in a little while. Tell
Yeah,
me
it's
what's going
been
on in your
a
life.
couple weeks, I guess. Well, working. We got a couple topics we're talking about. I went to the concert last night, I think. No, night before, 2 nights ago. And then another topic we got coming up is I discovered a long lost cyberpunk RPG that we're going to talk about.
Oh man, when you realize when you showed me that I was like, oh okay, I have a new addiction and it's collecting books from fucking old school RPGs or just any like RPGs. So now I'm like all about it. That's like what I want to do now.
Yeah, welcome to the club, man.
This fucking dude, like I needed another expensive hobby or something.
I know, and there's always some new game that you discover that you had no idea even existed.
I know, but see, like the difference between me and you, and we talked about this off air, was that you just like to collect them and read them and look at them and then maybe like theory craft. But I'm like, okay, I want to read this and I want to play it.
Yeah, I don't know if you'll want to play Cyberspace, but I mean the source books are really good that you could use to apply to any cyberpunk game.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I just love all those kinds of things, like the art, everything. I want to have it just because it's a cool book, you know?
Yeah, that's like mainly what I do when I get books is I love the art. Like art plays a big part of games for me. Uh, I'm not sure why. It's just I'll look at a book and I'll be like, man, this art. Like even some of those books that I decided to buy, like even games that don't have really good art are, I don't know, it just doesn't draw me in, I guess.
No, I know exactly what you mean. Like, it has to be something fun to look at. There's the thing about, like, if you play video games, at least, when the art is really good, you kind of catch yourself, like, looking at it and not playing the game and just going, like, fuck, that looks so cool. And it immerses you, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I've always been a visual learner, too. So anytime I want to learn about something, I gotta, like, show me what it looks like, you know?
Yeah, it always helps a lot. I mean, there are some cases where sometimes it's better left in your imagination, but I find with RPGs, it's a lot easier if you have like some kind of reference point to what they're talking about sometimes, because it's not like a book where it gets super descriptive. Where in an RPG they kind of just name it and then they give you kind of stats and stuff. So it helps in an RPG book to have a visual representation of what they're talking about.
Oh, 100%. I agree completely. And when you don't do the art right, it kind of messes with my mental image of what this game is supposed to be or whatever you're trying to get at me, you know? It like
Yeah,
ruins that thing in my mind.
yeah.
So,
I mean that happens in movies all the time when you see something you have in your mind already, and then you see it on the big screen or on TV, and you're like, "Ooh, that's not how I pictured that character."
I know that's a big thing with that new Witcher show that's going to be on Netflix. People were like, Henry Cavill, that's Superman. What the fuck? And then we saw like images in the trailer, and I'm like, I'm okay with it. I don't know how you felt
Yeah,
about it,
I
but
think the big change was Yennefer. I think Yennefer and I think Yennefer was the big one.
yeah. But she's supposed to be ugly, right? We talked about it.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, well, yeah, because they show her earlier, and then she kind of turns into the more beautiful Yennefer later in the trailer.
Yeah, she's supposed to be a witch who's like deformed, and that's how witches are, and they use magic to look sexy and beautiful.
Yeah, but in the game, she's like brunette, white, and
Yeah.
then in the trailer, she's like I don't know,
Middle
like
Eastern?
yeah,
Some
Middle
kind of.
Eastern, I guess. Yeah, I was gonna say like Indian or something, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. She has some kind of like Lebanese, Egyptian,
Yeah,
Indian
yeah, that's
thing
probably a
going on.
better. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it doesn't really matter to me, but a lot of people got their panties in a twist over it. So
I know, man. There's some diehard. There's even like there's like tribalism with like whoever's read the book and
yeah,
whoever's played the game, and like people are upset about like the people that read the book and the game like mingling with each other and shit.
yeah, there is kind of a weird because I know the showrunner for the Netflix series for The Witcher has said some things that are I don't agree with, I guess. But
Yeah.
she has kind of gone on this tirade about the book and how she didn't even play the games or something like that, and I think that made a lot of people angry.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Nerd rage.
Never say that.
Nerd rage.
Yeah.
That's funny. You can't be in this show if you haven't played the game or read the books, okay?
Yeah. If you guys are listening and you've never played Cyberpunk, get the fuck out.
Yeah, exactly. If you've never actually played the tabletop game.
Yeah, get out of here.
You know what's funny? There's like all sorts of people, right? You know, like for example, I'm in it to play, and other people are in it just because they like the story, they like the mechanics, they like the art. And at first I thought like that's such a weird perspective for other people to have. Why wouldn't you want to play? But now I'm understanding it that everyone enjoys it whatever way they want, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, Cyberpunk is like perfect for that kind of thing because it's not a generic fantasy world. It's got like deep lore and there's a lot more to it than just the mechanics and things. So Cyberpunk is kind of prime for that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So it's cool, man. I'm all about it. Should we get right into it then?
Yeah, this is actually really big news for people who've been looking forward to Cyberpunk Red.
Yeah, man. The physical jumpstart kits, according to Jay Gray from all kinds of social media posts, he said they had a business meeting with their distributor, and they're hoping that October will be the physical jumpstart kit releases, and you'll be able to buy them for $30 online somewhere and get it sent to your house in October.
Yeah, there are some places that already have pre-orders up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, obviously I suggest buying it straight from Artel Saurian. And the Jumpstart kit's nice. The physical edition's really good. You get dice and like little standees and obviously the physical books, because I've talked about this before, but like PDFs for me are kind of hard to read. I like having
I don't
physical.
read them.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we had to for the Jumpstart kit, but if I have an option, I go with the physical version.
Oh my god, I love it so much. Just holding it in your hand. I'll be sitting on the couch and just flipping through the pages reading it. And that's part of why, like, one of the RPGs that we'll be talking about, before I got the physical copy of the book, they sent me a PDF like months in advance. And I was like, yeah, I didn't even look at it, dude. I didn't open the file one time.
Wow, really?
Yeah, because I was like, I'm going to get the book and I don't want the PDF. I'll just wait for the book.
Yeah. I see.
You know?
If I get a PDF, I'll look at the artworks, because sometimes what I'll do before I buy a book, I'll look at like what's inside and like what the art is like, because that's what we're talking about. Like, art is important to me, so like I'll flip through it and I mean, if you've already bought it, I guess for in your case, there's no reason to, but a lot of times I get the PDF because it's cheaper, and I'll look through it and I'll be like, all right, this is worth buying, and then I'll actually read it. And
that makes sense. Yeah, and the PDF is generally always way cheaper than the physical copy.
Yeah, I think they're about a third of the price of a physical book, I'd say, in most cases.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, but you know what? I've been looking online, like on eBay, and used Cyberpunk 2020 books and like just Cyberpunk general. They're like not that expensive. It's like $10 to $20.
Yeah, you can get some of the older stuff really cheap. I got one of the Arasaka Brainworm module from I think Atlas did that one for 99 cents.
Oh wow, physical copy.
Yeah. I mean, it ended up being like about $5 because I had to pay. Everybody jacks up shipping usually, but still, like that's really good price for that.
Yeah, like I did just buy the augmented reality source book that we talked about off air, but for you guys that don't know what it is, it's a source book that was created because they wanted it for Cyberpunk 2020, but it's generic enough that it works for any Cyberpunk world. And it has like all kinds of tables, dude. Like you walk into a building, what's going on in the building, what do you smell, what do you see, who are the NPCs, everything you can roll off just this one resource. And right now it's on DriveThruRPG as pay as you want, or pay what you want, and you get the PDF for like $1, $2, whatever.
Yeah.
So I got it for a couple bucks.
Yeah, I've got the physical copy. It was actually at my local game store, and
That's fucking
yeah,
awesome.
it's an amazing book. I've talked about it before. I don't know if I've talked about it on this podcast, but it's a great book for, like you said, for any cyberpunk game. And
Yeah.
it's equivalent to if anybody's played like Dungeons and Dragons and they know of Vornheim, he based that book on Vornheim, so that'll give you a
Yeah.
good example of what it's like.
Was there a D&D 5e equivalent of Vornheim? There was something. It was called like, oh, fuck, man.
Well,
I
you can
forgot the
use
name.
Vornheim for it because Vornheim is it's like that book. It's like completely, you know,
Generic.
yeah, generic.
Yeah.
It's the same stuff that's in that book, only like fantasy based.
Yeah. But anyway, I mean, October, the physical jumpstart kits will be out on, hopefully on store shelves. So I want to walk into a store and see it. That'll make me happy.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, it'll probably be a local game store, but
Yeah.
if they could even get it bigger, that'd be great. If CD Projekt
Yeah.
Red gives them a little boost in, distribution.
You don't think it'll be at like Target or Walmart?
I don't think so,
Mm-hmm.
unless CD Projekt Red are behind it and they're like giving it a boost. I think it'll be a game store. I mean, most RPG products are available at game stores. Like you don't see them. The only thing you'll see in Target is D&D, like the Stranger
Yeah.
Things
I was about
box
to say.
set and stuff like that. So
Yeah. Yeah, they have all the starter kits. I mean, even at Target and stuff, they don't have like core rule book or anything. They have like starter box sets and stuff
I
like
mean, I
that.
think the most we could hope for would be like Barnes and Noble or like bookstores,
Yeah.
because Barnes and Noble will have like a whole bunch of RPG books.
Hmm.
And for them, I don't even know if it would be worth it to try and get bigger stores, because there's that
Yeah.
cost in, how many people that are already into Cyberpunk are going to go there to buy it, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, your target audience that will probably buy it knows like, oh, I'll go to my local shop
Yeah.
because that's where they usually have it.
Or just order it online because everybody orders stuff online nowadays.
Yeah, it's funny that we're like right now we're in a period where not a lot of people know about the game. It's more than it was like a few years ago, but it's growing and it's funny. Like I know later on we're gonna look back and go like, oh, remember when like they didn't have this thing everywhere? They had to find where to find like cyberpunk stuff, and then now it's everywhere. It's like a generic thing.
Yeah, and the other thing is that CD Projekt Red are doing like a really good job at promoting the game. Like, I mean, 2020 and the RPG game. Bringing Mike out to all the events and just
Yeah.
giving away the 2020 source book or rule book with all copies of Cyberpunk 2077.
Yep.
It's good that they're really pushing the game along with it. They're not just kind of taking the source material and using it. They're promoting what they used to make the game.
Yeah, it's awesome, dude. It is awesome, and I get it because it's like they're all reinvigorated by the whole thing. You know, they want to bring it back and talk about it as much as they can, as
Well, I
they
think,
should.
I mean, obviously they love the game. So I think for them, it's like, we have this thing that not many people will know about. So we want to show everybody.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. So anyway, October physical jumpstart kits will be out. Is that everything on that? Should we move on?
Yep. Yeah. I think we're ready to switch gears a little bit.
All right. So I know this is a Cyberpunk 2020 Red podcast, but we love all kinds of tabletop games, and I think it's okay to talk about other tabletop games.
I think it
Right, Luke?
also helps because even though this is kind of what we were talking about earlier, how we are kind of becoming collectors, or I'm a collector, you're becoming one, is that even if you don't like even want to play these games, you can always take things from these games and put them, like if there's a certain mechanic in 2020 or Red that you don't like, there could be a mechanic in one of these games that you do like. Or
Yep.
in the case of the game I'm going to talk about coming up, like there's a lot of cool material that you can just lift directly for your game.
Yeah, I mean, especially yours was like made around the same time as 2020.
Yeah.
So it's like
Or the original
probably borrowed.
Cyberpunk 2013.
Exactly. So they were like around the same time period, same like mentality. There was no internet, there was no cell phones. So a lot of like stuff is kind of on par, you know?
Yeah.
But the book I wanted to talk to you guys about, it was on Kickstarter for a little while. They wanted, I think, 10,000 or 5,000 pounds for because it's a British based company. It's called Dragon Turtle Games Limited, and the game is called Carbon 2085, a cyberpunk RPG. It was on Kickstarter, and they surpassed it by a shitload. It made like £150,000, and I think it was mostly because their timing was impeccable, dude. The Kickstarter began right when this whole like cyberpunk hype was going on, and
yeah.
like right when I was about to start my YouTube channel, all that, like in that area. They were like, hey, we're making a cyberpunk game, and we're basing it on the open gaming license of Dungeons and Dragons 5e. So everybody that's played D&D is like, oh, fuck yeah, I want to play a cyberpunk game. I don't want to learn a new system. This is right up my alley, right?
Yeah, it's easy transition.
Super easy. So it has that whole D20 system. I mean, even the inside of the book looks the same. Like, it looks exactly like the core manual of 5e. And I had some like negative things to say about it before I had finished the book when I was talking to Luke on the phone. But then once I finished the book, all those things were answered. All those questions I had.
Okay.
So number one, I'll tell you that it wasn't that expensive. It was like $30-$40, something like that, and it's pretty decent for a core rulebook.
Average, yeah, it's an average price of a core rulebook, I think.
Yeah, it's not for sale right now yet. They're gonna work on it because the Kickstarter's done. So whoever has it has it. Whoever doesn't, then you just have to wait a little bit. But the art in this fucking book is so good, dude. So good. It's top quality art. I mean, just like the cover of the core rulebook, it has like this hyper realistic cell shading. I don't know how else to explain it. You know how like Borderlands has that kind of cell shading?
Yeah.
It's like that, but hyper realistic. And then the artwork inside is amazing too. There's so much good full color, the guns, the weapons, the cyberware, all kinds of stuff like that. That's so good in this book. But let me tell you guys about like the nitty gritty. So the number one thing about this book is it's obviously the D&D 5e system. And I originally had thought, damn, they really assume that you know the system. Because when you open the book, one of the first few pages doesn't really tell you shit about how to play the game. There's like one page for how to play. And then it gets straight into creating characters. And I was like, damn, dude, what if I don't know any of this shit? Well, all the other like basic stuff, like what a turn is, what a round is, what a action is, that's all later at the end of the book. So I was like, okay, so they're putting all the meat in the front, They want to hook you right away. It's very smart design. I like it. So there's a bunch of characters, there's classes, there's backgrounds, they even have cybernetics, they call them augmentations. And the way they do it in 2020, in Cyberpunk 2020, is we have the humanity thing, right? Empathy and humanity. The more cybernetics you have, the less humanity you have, you go into cyberpsychosis. Well, this game, the idea is your cybernetics need to be powered by these like power cells, and sometimes over time those power cells leak this liquid that poisons you and drives you crazy and kills you. So people take drugs and stuff to overcome the sickness of like the leaking batteries,
It's funny because just the other day I was thinking about that, like how your cyberware is powered.
Yep.
It's so funny that it's in that game.
Yeah, so it's like powered cyberware, and you can't really you don't have access to a lot of cyberware in the beginning of the game when you're level 1. And the way you get access to better cyberware is you have to have influence within 2 groups. There's the corporate groups and there's the street groups. And it's like reputation. So whichever one you have reputation with, they'll open up access to places where you can get better cyberware or the stuff that you need. So it's just like everything is mechanical with this game. Like everything is, they've written it down pretty much. It's not like loosely based. And there's some cool, there's really cool classes. Like they have stuff that you'll have in Cyberpunk 2020. Like they have the corporate, it's called a corporate kid. And pretty much what that means is since birth you were raised to be part of a corporation. They have a Badlander, which is kind of like a nomad.
Yeah.
They have a gutter punk, which is like a booster ganger. It's hard to explain. They're mostly just like street people. That's what they are. They're just street people. They don't necessarily have to be in a gang or anything like
Yeah.
that. There's even a class called Regular Joe, and it's just like, or sorry, it's supposed to be a race. So it's race and then class, right? So this is your race. Regular Joes are kind of like humans in D&D 5e.
So they have like
They have,
aliens
like-
in that game.
It's they don't really so they have. I'll tell you right now. So another one is called a synth, and it's like a synthetic
Okay,
being.
yeah.
And like there's the whole story of like how they're trying to get basic synthetic rights because they're pretty much used as slaves, and they're self-aware, and they're trying to fight for their rights. So they're like lower class people, you know,
Yeah.
protected class. Then there's these people called wormers. So it has like sci-fi elements. There's like these wormholes in space, and somebody discovered them, and the corporations were like one of the first people to discover them, and they were able to find other Earth-like planets that were like vastly larger than Earth and colonize them. And since they were the first ones there, there's no US government or United Nations or anything that can tell them what to do. They could just take up all the resources they need, create whatever laws they want, and now it's like you can't tell that you literally can't tell that corporation what to do. Because they have spaceships, they have battleships, they have slave labor, they have armies, everything. They're their own nations, you know?
Yeah.
They're their own planets, not even nations, planets. And wormers are people that have gone through those wormholes so many times that it like fucks them up, that they become like taller than normal human beings. Their bones are like skinnier and shit. So there's that. There's this whole like aging dynamic that happens. Then the classes are pretty straightforward. There's two classes that are really similar. One's called the Daimyo, and there's another one called an Enforcer. The Enforcer is a solo. The Daimyo is a solo, but a little bit different. And I don't know the real difference. They try to explain to you in the book, like, oh, this isn't the Enforcer. It's a little bit different. But, I mean, I don't see much of a difference,
Well,
to be
daimyo
honest.
is like a Japanese. It's like a samurai or something like that.
Yeah, they're supposed to be like the leaders of the group.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it's like, oh, why do I have to make them a leader? Like, why can't the Enforcer be a leader? And then now is he a daimyo? You know, it's kind of like the only thing that makes them different than the Enforcer is their skills and abilities. You know.
Yeah.
But their backstory on who they are sounds really similar. Then there's the Doc, which is like a cleric healer type, and it's literally like 1d4 healing when it touches people. So there's like those kind of D&D elements, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Cyberpunk 2020, it's like you got to get to a doctor and then maybe they can help you, and they don't really tell you anything. You just have to kind of figure it out on your own. But this game's like, no, you do 2d8 healing in a 5 square radius with this ability, you know?
Yeah, so this uses the standard like polyhedral set.
Exactly. So like, and it kind of, there's like a suspension of disbelief, you know, of like, don't worry about how it works, you know, nanobots, whatever, come up with it on your own, but you just heal in this game, okay? Then there's the Enforcer, who's like a solo, like I said. There's the Hacker, which is pretty much like a control mage that can like, you know, destroy electronics and blow up grenades just by looking at them. Like literally 60-foot range. Using an action, you choose a creature within range that is carrying a grenade. You cause a grenade to explode. The grenade has the normal effect. This is level 1. Level 1, you get to blow up grenades that are just sitting on people's like laps. So the Hacker, it seems pretty OP to me. But there's that. They have some really cool stuff like Robomancer, where you can control robotics and stuff, and you're kind of like a World of Warcraft hunter. Then there's the Investigator, who's pretty much just like a cop or ex-cop, private investigator type of guy. And he has some cool abilities that like have to do with investigating, but it's just like here, Watchful Eye. You have honed your sense for countless investigations. Starting at first level, you cannot gain disadvantage on investigating, perception, or tracking checks that rely on sight unless blinded. So they have names for like abilities that just like work with it, you know?
Yeah.
And then they have a scoundrel. This is the last one, which is kind of like a fixer rogue. You know what I mean? Like a Cyberpunk 2020 fixer. Their background is like a fixer. That's what the idea is. And they play like a rogue. They have sneak attacks and cunning action and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then they each have their own sub classes, kind of like how barbarians have like the way of the totem, way of the whatever. It's the same shit with this game. So there's that. Then there's a really big emphasis on your work, like who you work with, what job you have, how much money you make. If you're unskilled or skilled, there's vices, there's cool gear, armor and helmets, vehicles, augmentations, which are cybernetics. And then let's see here, addiction with there's a lot of drugs. There's I talked about this, income, travel. Then it gets into combat, but if you've played D&D 5e, it's the same shit. It's just D&D 5e combat with a little bit extra for the cyberpunk universe. Then there's like hacking, and then it goes straight into the lore. So they told you all about the classes, all about like how you play the game, and then they go straight into lore. And they have a lot of lore here. It's cool. They talk about it takes place in San Francisco, the game. It's at least this source book does. So like there's obviously room for you to make whatever you want somewhere else. Then they have a bunch of charts and tables, and you know how much I fucking love that kind of shit. They have charts and tables for everything, like pages and pages. There's like 30 pages of charts and tables almost. It looks like 20 or something for your own game.
So it's like yeah, okay.
Yeah, like loot, like what NPCs are doing, what's going on in the district that you're in, all kinds of cool stuff like that. So you could just use that. Then they have a bestiary that goes from challenge 0, you know, D&D 5e, goes challenge 0 up to challenge 11. And then they have a straight up module right there. So, and that's how the book ends. The book, it has everything you need to play this game, including a module. The only thing they don't have is pre-generated characters, but who cares? That's not, I think that's it's more fun to make.
Yeah, if you got the if you got the full character creation, besides the GM can make pre-gens if they want by themselves.
Yeah. So my overall verdict of this game, I haven't played it yet, so I can't really give you a verdict on the game itself. But from the book, I think it's a must-buy because it's cyberpunk in a D&D setting in the D&D system. And I always thought, like, how would that work? And now I know. And it looks good. It feels good. It's interesting. It's unique enough that it's different than Cyberpunk 2020. But comparing it to Cyberpunk 2020, this is way more cartoony and not as serious. And I don't know if they'll be upset about me saying something like that. But you're talking about, like, the difference between the dark future of Cyberpunk 2020 and this is huge. You know?
Yeah, what is the lethality like in that game? Like, because, you know, Cyberpunk is pretty lethal. So how does Carbon 2185 compare to that?
It's as lethal as D&D 5e.
So not very lethal.
Not very lethal. Yeah. At first level, you're pretty fucking OP with almost every class.
Yeah.
You know? And also, like, dude, look at one of the first things in the bestiary, like, as far as, like, bad guys, is literally a rat.
Yeah.
And it's like, I mean, okay, it has...
Is it a giant rat?
-1, no, 1d4 -1 HP, maybe. Perhaps the only animal to survive the ecological collapse in considerable numbers, this small rodent has always flourished where human waste can be found, like along the San Francisco wall. Now, it's hard to take a game seriously when I'm shooting rats with shotguns, and that's like...
I know, I can't imagine a scenario where I would have, like, in a Cyberpunk game, somebody encounter a rat that they'd have to kill. The only time I'd ever consider that is if Biotechnica genetically engineered like a mutant rat in red or something like that.
Yeah, and you'd have to, like, give me more than that. That's the start, you know? Like, okay, and then what, you know? Like, is it a conspiracy where these rats are filled with some kind of, like, microchip that scan people as they go through cities, you know what I mean? For, like, data.
Yeah.
but this just says literally a rat. Like I don't know, why aren't there dogs? Why aren't there wolves? Like now we're like playing D&D, you know, when we're killing rats and shit. So,
Yeah.
So that's kind of a bummer to me, just that. But then that's like the only one, and then everything else it does have mechs. There's robots. There's straight up like Gundam style mechs too that you can play. You can control robots. You can hack robots. You can be a robot with the synth. You know, I thought the synth was probably the most interesting character.
Yeah, I mean, you can kind of do that in Cyberpunk if you get like a full body conversion, but
yeah, but this one, it is like you're born looking like you're 25 years old and you're a machine and you have some sentient life. You were probably born a slave.
So you're literally an AI.
You're literally an AI, and then there's like cops that go around hunting you to shut you down because, you know, you're a machine that's gone rogue.
Yeah.
So there's that whole thing of them protesting, and, you know, it's interesting. That's interesting to me. But yeah, so you know, top to bottom, I like it. I'm gonna run it. I'm making characters for me and my group to play once we take a break from our Cyberpunk Red game. We're definitely gonna play this game. So stay tuned on my YouTube channel if you guys want to check it out. Carbon 2185 by Dragon Turtle Games. The author, the main creator, is Robert Mariner Dodds. Oh, I'm guessing that's the same Robert that we're supposed to. Yeah, so we're supposed to have Robert on for the podcast soon, and hopefully we can talk to him about the game and stuff like that.
Yeah,
we'll see though.
Yeah, it's tentative. And to make it clear, you really like the game besides the rat, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, look, I can have criticisms of something and still like it. I don't think that you should. If I made this book and gave it to someone and they only told me positive things, I wouldn't believe them.
Yeah.
I'd be like, all right, well, what about the shit you don't like, dude?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the things and it's not that I hate the rats. I just think that it's hard to take it seriously. Like if they're trying to go for a dark tone, it's hard to take it seriously when you're killing rats, you know?
Yeah.
It's kind of comical.
Yeah.
But in Cyberpunk 2020, the dark tone is there at every turn, dude.
Yeah.
You know?
And you said that book has a bestiary in it?
Yeah, I mean it's what you would call a bestiary just because it has all the it has a bunch of enemies that you can fight.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It's stat blocks, that's what all it is,
yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it looks exactly like a D&D 5e book.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's my report. Did I get an A?
All right. Yeah.
All right. Hit us with that cyberspace, dude.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, I found this game. I think I was on eBay looking for Cyberpunk stuff because I'm always looking for. I bought a whole bunch of the old books. Like I was saying earlier, I got the Arasaka Brainworm book, and I bought a couple other source books for pretty cheap. And I came across this game, Cyberspace, and I'd never heard of it before. And so I decided to look into it a little bit. And it was made in 1989, like a year after Cyberpunk 2013 came out. So I imagine they were probably working on this. It was like something was in the water back then because a whole bunch of different Cyberpunk games came out. You know, there was GURP Cyberpunk, Shadowrun, obviously Cyberpunk 2013. And it was put out by Iron Crown Enterprises, and it was written by Todd Foley. And this game also takes place in San Francisco, only it's the year 2090. They were smart enough to push the year back.
Yeah, they're like, just in case.
Yeah, we'll put it, 100 years in the future. And the actual core rulebook, I haven't read through all of it, obviously, but from what I've read through, it's a really crunchy system. There's 11 different stats, and they're based on kind of a D100. So, you roll 2 D10s, and I've always kind of liked that mechanic because it's percentile, exact percentile.
Interesting.
All dice rolls are percentile, but this is exact, If you're 74, you've got a 74% chance to hit that guy. And I've always liked that exact percentile system. I've always thought, if I ever wrote my own game, I would probably use that kind of system.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, and then the character classes are kind of funny. They're called sleaze, which is Basically, it's just somebody who can like talk their way out of trouble. They're kind of like a social class, I guess. Uh,
Oh, okay, sleaze like sleazy.
yeah, yeah. But then there's
Hmm.
sneak, which is kind of like a criminal. Like they like to do kind of more physical crimes, I guess, more than like the other classes. And then there's killer, which is just a solo basically.
Hmm.
Net junkie, which is net runner.
Yeah, of course.
Jockey, which is kind of they're like a jack of all trades, but they're more like a common person on the street kind of class.
Hmm.
And then there's a tech rat, which is basically techie.
Hmm.
And then the other thing this does that's kind of interesting is they have social classes where like you roll. This is kind of like backgrounds in Cyberpunk or life paths, I guess.
Yeah.
And your social class can determine a lot about like how much money your character starts out with, how many different like abilities you can get, different kind of skills that you can roll on these different tables, because this game has a lot of tables too. And they have like
Oh, so your social class determines what abilities you can get?
different abilities, how many different abilities you can get, how much money you start out with. There's a lot of different things that go with your
Uh,
social class.
so the idea is like how you react with your community determines what opportunities you have for
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. And
I like that idea.
yeah, the character creation is super in depth. You can start the game with like different injuries. You roll on like an injury table. You can get there's something called idiosyncrasies, like the different kind of little skills that you can get. There's background, like we're saying, life paths, and then you can roll, and your character can be ambidextrous. Because if you're not ambidextrous, if you're using your offhand to shoot or do something, you get a penalty on your action. And so if you can roll really high, you can actually your character can be ambidextrous and like shoot with both hands. I don't know what kind of
Oh, that's cool.
implications that has on like combat. Like if you can like shoot with both hands, like that. I don't know. That seems like maybe it could get out of hand. I don't know. But
Yeah, it's a lot to keep in mind. I would bog down combat, I think.
yeah, I don't know. I didn't read. Like I said, I haven't got super in depth with the core rulebook yet, but
Yeah.
because it's heavy reading. Sometimes you'll read something and it's like super in depth and stuff, and it's kind of like you got to read it a couple times to absorb it all, and
For
that's kind of
sure.
how the beginning is. But XP seems like a nightmare to keep track of because you get XP
Oh,
for damage that you take, damage that you deal out, whether or not you're in a car or out of a car. You get points for if you do any critical damage. You get hits for if you kill something. You can get experience points for killing characters. You get experience for like traveling, like moving and stuff, and then that's with maneuvers too. You get XP for construction or research, like whether you research
Jesus.
something. You get experience for if during role playing you come up with an idea that the GM likes. You get experience for that. And then there's something that they say like miscellaneous experience for like other things that the GM wants to give you. So like as I was reading through this, I was like, geez, you got to keep track of all that stuff, like how much damage you do to a
Yeah.
character and all that. It's like
Yeah, the
whoa.
problem with that is the rules lawyers will be like, "Well, you forgot to give me 20 XP because I slapped that one guy twice," and it's like, "Oh fuck, man, like I got to keep count of all that shit." Or I would just generally tell my players like, "Don't worry about what the book says. I do my own XP
Yeah, I
thing,"
mean you do
you
that
know?
with everything, but as a system, it seems kind of like I don't know, crazy. Like the fact that you have to keep track of
Yeah.
all those numbers, like even on paper, it's like you want to keep all that, all that on track. It seems a little out there.
Cocaine's a hell of a drug.
I know, but
It's the 80s, dude.
yeah,
No.
as I'm reading the core rulebook, I'm kind of realizing like, I would probably never run this game just because of
Oh,
how
really?
crunchy it seems. And there's a lot of tables and stuff, but like I was saying, like just looking through the character creation, I was like, geez, there's a lot there, a lot, almost too much, Because
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that's just me because I like things that are more simple and easy to do.
Hmm.
So if somebody likes crunch a lot, like if you play Shadowrun or something and you want something that's less fantasy, less magic, maybe you could run this. But I think
Yeah.
the 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 reason why I even looked into this game is that the source books are amazing. Like just the material that's in them is great. Like you can use it for any Cyberpunk game. They've got the Sprawl Gangs and Mega Corporations book is really like it's got the different gangs and it's got a full color picture, or it's got a full like front shot of what the character looks like, and then they kind of have like their generic stats. Then they have a whole background, and then they have like stuff about like, the leader. They're really nice. And there's only so many books because I'm still not 100% sure what the downfall of the game was. Maybe it was because it was difficult to run, but there's about, I want to say 10 source books for the game, and I've got most of them now, and they're all really good. Like I said, the art is really good in them. I like the source books a lot. I might use some stuff from them. There's like poser gangs in them. Everything that you see in Cyberpunk 2020, there's kind of an equivalent in this game, because there's a poser gang. I think they're called the Dick Van Dykes, and there's a couple really funny stuff that's in the book that is pretty cool. The only problem, they do have the PDFs on DriveThruRPG, and they're really cheap, but you can't buy physical editions. They don't even have print on demand. So if you want physical copies of the book, you have to do what I've been doing and scour eBay for them. Or
I saw them on eBay. They were like $10-$12 though. That's not too much.
They're really cheap because I think it's a game that like hardly anybody knows about. That's why when I found it, I was like, ooh, nice, and I made sure to buy a whole bunch before I told everybody about it.
Dude, I would see. First of all, I agree that the one thing about that when you showed me was the art was so good.
Yeah, the art is amazing.
It was so good. It's that 2020 80s 90s art that we love,
Yeah.
So I like it, but I'm curious to know, like, it was around the same time. I'm sure Mike Pondsmith and everybody that worked on 2020 knows about this game.
Yeah,
they're deep into tabletop gaming. I would want to fucking ask them what they could tell us about it.
Yeah, what they thought about it.
Yeah, because were they like rivals? Were they supportive?
Yeah, because now it seems
they
like
steal ideas.
Catalyst Game Labs and Art Telstorian are pretty cool with one another. Because when they announced that the Cyberpunk Red Jumpstart kit was going to come out at Gen Con, and then the people at Catalyst Game Labs announced that they were releasing Shadowrun 6th Edition at Gen Con, they were both like, oh yeah, 2 Cyberpunk games at the same time. At least publicly, that's what they said. I don't know how they felt internally about it, but they seemed to be pretty supportive. So, but back then, I don't know how they would have felt about it.
Yeah, who knows, dude?
I'd like to see if I could get that guy Todd Foley who wrote the book. He still writes some Cyberpunk stuff, so I'd like to see if I could get him on. It'd be interesting to talk to him about, what he thinks the kind of primer was. I mean, there's Blade Runner and stuff, but it seems like those games like all came out like right after one another. So
yeah, I'm looking at their Wikipedia, Icecrown Enterprises.
Yeah.
And it says, they're still around, but I think they're named something else now.
They still have a website for Icecrown Enterprises, and I haven't seen. There's not like a whole lot up there. I know they have a couple different games that they've released. I know that the system for cyberspace is based off another system called Space Master, but I mean, I think that's just another ice game. So
yeah, okay. It's interesting. I would want to know more. Yeah, I definitely, like, if I were to sit down with Mike, I would ask him about this and see what happens. Hopefully he doesn't get upset. Doesn't like, but I would want to know because I'm so curious.
Well, I mean, his game survived, and cyberspace obviously didn't. So I don't think it bothered him that much.
Exactly. All right. Do you want to move on to the midnight concert?
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
All right, dude. It was pretty awesome. Like, so I went Friday, and the funny thing is I wanted to be there on time, and I had VIP, so I wanted to get there on time. And I was looking at it, and the VIP was at 5:30, and so I was thinking, all right, I want to get there at 5. But at some point in my head, it switched to the VIP meet and greet is at 5. So I got there at 4:30, I think. And then there were like two other guys that were waiting like underneath the canopy where the event was going on. So I went up and I talked to them and I hung out with them like the whole concert. And the one guy that was there, the one guy that was there, Nate, it was Nate and Griff, I think was his name. And the guy Nate, he recorded the whole concert and it's on YouTube right now if you want to find it. It's like the midnight in Toledo, and then it's got the date 9/13/2019. Yeah, it was on Friday the 13th, so that was pretty awesome.
Oh yeah, that's right.
But yeah, so I did the meet and greet. I met him real quick, took a picture with him. We got our VIP stuff. But like, and then opening was this guy called Flamingosis, and he was okay. It was basically, to be honest, it was like he put on his playlist on Spotify and then just danced to it.
That's a bummer.
It was good. It was good. Well, at the end, he beatboxed, and that was really good.
Oh, okay.
But the music he played was pretty good. It was way better than I expected, because somebody else that was at the show said they'd listened to it, and they said it was like lounge music, and I thought, oh, shit. And then it started, and like as soon as it started, I was like, dude, this sounds like New York, like hip-hop kind of. Like I expected somebody to start rapping over it, you know? And then it just, you know, like when you're listening to like a DJ at a club, like it just is one continuous, like, you know, there's no break, but it like has like these little like breaks where the music, like it changes gears, you know?
Yeah, where the songs change gears, like it goes from like, that can kill a dance floor, but I'm sure people just came just to hear the music though, right?
Yeah, I mean, you know, everybody's just kind of waiting for the midnight to come on, you know, so he's just kind of playing, and people are like, yeah, okay. But yeah, so the midnight came out, and the whole show was fucking great. I was lucky enough, I got to snatch the playlist, or the set list. Like, I was right, this is the other thing, I was in front row, and there was no barricade, so we're like right up against the stage.
Oh, wow.
So I could have reached up and like tripped the lead singer if I wanted to. And they played like all different kinds of stuff. Like Kids is their newest album, but they only played like 2 songs from Kids. They played Lost Boy and America 2. But dude, their sax,
their album?
Kids is the album, and they only played 2 songs from that one. And the rest of it was all like stuff from their other albums, Nocturnal, and I think Days of Thunder is the other one. But they played They played 3 new songs, or no, they played 2 new songs, and they also did a cover of "Free Fallin'" by Tom Petty.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that was in like the encore. You know what's funny is like I could see the set list from where I was standing, and so they like leave the set, and I can see on the set list there's like 3 more songs left. And everybody's like, 1 more song. And I'm like, dude, they're coming out for like 3 more.
Yeah.
The craziest part, the best part of that concert, though, is they had their sax player was insane. He was like, his name was Jacob. That's all I know. His name was Jacob. And he was like, one part of the song, I think it was like Lonely City or Death Touch. I don't remember. But he was playing, and he like points to the crowd, and he's like trying to get us to part. So he jumps into the crowd, walks through the crowd, jumps up on the bar, and is playing the sax on the bar. And then he like
didn't miss a beat.
Yeah, he didn't miss a beat. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, during part of one of the other songs, somebody had like a toy sax in the crowd, and he had people pass it up, and so he was playing his sax and had the toy sax, and he was playing them both at the same time.
That's hilarious.
And there was one part where I was like up front, and he starts like pointing at me, and I'm like, "Hey, what's up?" And he grabbed my hat, he put my hat on, and he started playing. Oh man,
that's funny.
But yeah, it was insane, dude. They closed with Sunset, and then that was it. You know, I bought my merch, and it was also, I forgot to mention this, like when we were first going in, it was like storming. Like hardcore, like raining, thunder, lightning, and we were like, there was like 4 of us, and we were all lit. There was like a really small awning, and we were all standing underneath it, and then the wind was blowing, so that it was blowing on us. So we're like,
oh my
fuck.
God.
So this guy,
sideways rain.
Yeah. So this guy got his car, and he pulled it up, and we all jumped in his car and dried off. It's the guy who actually recorded it.
That's funny. Nate the Great.
Yeah, Nate the Great. Oh, you found it? Yeah, Nate the Great.
I found it. That's funny.
Yeah, so if you're interested in watching it, I'll actually link it in the description, the full concert. because
Yeah.
it's really good. Like I have a hard time when I'm at a concert actually hearing like lyrics and stuff, like hearing the words. If I know the words, that's fine. But like when I watch the recording, I can hear everything. I don't know if it's just the feedback
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah, no, it definitely where you're standing and how the acoustics are set is a big deal. I remember one time I was at a concert and I can hear the bass drum echoing off the back of the walls. So it was like ba 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 every time the bass would hit, and it totally fucked up every song.
Yeah,
So I had to get closer because it sounded like shit.
yeah, I didn't have that problem. It might have been because the speakers were far to the left and far to the right.
Yeah. Who knows? All right. That's the midnight concert.
Yeah.
Shall we talk about GM advice corner? Should we do that?
Yeah.
All right. Well, this week we wanted to talk to you guys about character death and how to deal with it the right way and the wrong way, because, it happens in RPGs. That's literally part of the game, is losing a character. But I'll tell you from my experience that as a GM, it's a really nerve-wracking situation. Because especially when you make your character and you're committed to them and you're invested in them, and then the GM kills them, like, players want receipts, dude. Like, how did it happen? Why did it happen? And it like puts a lot of fucking pressure on you as a GM.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So definitely, from my opinion, character death is a really tough thing to talk about. But what's your experience with it?
Well, I think the most important thing, if you're a GM, and even if you're a player, I'll put it this way, is knowing what game you're getting into from the start. Especially if they haven't played Cyberpunk, you got to tell them, like, look, this isn't D&D. Like, your characters can die pretty much at any moment. And then if you're a player, you need to make sure you know, like, what kind of GM you have, Because,
Exactly.
Mike Pondsmith's favorite saying is, I'm the guy who killed your Cyberpunk character. That's his saying.
Yeah.
That's his tagline. So you kind of have to know, like, is your GM a little bit like that? Is he more about kind of the cooperative storytelling? Is he more about, like the run and gun style, that kind of thing?
Is he more, or is your GM the type that, like, you have plot armor, and even though you're in a situation where you were supposed to die, he like fudges the dice or does something in a way to keep you alive?
Yeah, I think
Maybe,
I mean, at least I know that I've done that sometimes, a few times.
I've done it too.
Yeah.
I've done it when I know that I fucked up the encounter and I made it too powerful.
Yeah.
Like, if everybody's getting fucked by the big bad guy, I would have to think, like, did they even ever have a chance? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
And if the question is no, if the answer is no to that question, then I fucked up and I have to figure out something to save them in the moment.
Yeah. I mean, generally in that case, you just fluctuate his hit points is what I would do.
Yeah. And I mean, anytime I've lost a character as a player, it was because I rolled poorly. And it was just like, I rolled ones, they rolled tens,
Yeah.
and I was dead.
Well, that's another key thing, is to give your players a chance. Don't be like, you stepped on a landmine and you took, however many hit points that would kill them, blew off their leg or whatever. You got to give them a chance to, defuse it or, shoot back, or you want to make sure there's some kind of player agency.
Yeah, there was one time where my buddy was telling me he was playing with one of those vindictive GMs that sent like a pack of wolves after them, and it was like 7 wolves. They killed 3 or 4 of them, and then the guys were like asking the GM, like, why are these wolves still fighting us? We killed 4 of their buddies. Like, aren't they even just a little bit scared? And he's like, no, they're fighting you to the death. And it's like, dude, like... What is it? Are these regular wolves? Yeah, they're regular wolves. Like, why wouldn't they run away? You know what I mean? Like, Those are the kind of things that so basically what I mean to say is, like, character death, it's a really touchy subject, but definitely the wrong way to handle it is to get upset enough to, like, ruin the fun that everybody's having. Like, if you lose your character, it sucks. I know you're sad. I know you're upset. Go outside, take a walk. Don't bring that negative vibe back to the table, because it's literally part of the game. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And like we said, I mean, the biggest thing is like letting people know what kind of game. If you're a GM, let them know what kind of game you're running, and if you're a player, find out what kind of game they're running, and in general, like how lethal their game is. Because I always like to every October, I like to run kind of a like Halloween themed, or not Halloween, but horror themed campaign, or not really a campaign, but a one shot. And in general, I like to kill everybody off, and they know that going in. They know that going in. Sometimes, I mean, I've had players that have survived, and
Yeah.
but in general, I like to kind of
install odds.
yeah, it's it's a difficult one, Like I think one year I did kind of like a Cthulhu type themed one, and I've done. I think this year I'm gonna do kind of like a because of Red, do like a nuclear bomb thing that's like reanimated the dead or something like that,
Ah,
So
that's cool.
yeah, and in those I like to keep them lethal. I've talked about how much I like the gang Jack the Rippers, so I've used them before too.
Yeah. No, I mean, definitely the lethality of a game is what makes it part of the fun, because there's stakes now. All that time you spent making your character, especially Cyberpunk, it takes so much fucking time. All that time, all the sessions that you've been through, you're so like, everything about this character because of the life path system. Their whole background, who their family is, where they come from, and you live this character, and then they die. And it's like, oh, it hits you so fucking hard, man. It hits you so hard.
Yeah.
So I get it when you're upset, but that's just the game, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah. I need to be a little bit better at being lethal. I pull the ripcord a lot. I'll admit it. I do. I pull the ripcord a lot and put the safety net under my players all the time, because I feel like unless I'm prepared to show them exactly how they died, I have to like have some kind of foolproof thing.
Yeah, it's difficult when you're designing a campaign, and this part I guess is for GMs, to take into account character death, because sometimes you have it set up where like, okay, and they find this, and then this character discovers this, or whatever, like if they're integral to the story. Like I know in your game you have I don't remember which character it is, but like his wife was killed or whatever.
Yeah.
So if that character dies, if his character dies, you know what I mean?
Exactly. That whole story arc is gone.
Yeah, and that's the hard thing to plan when you're doing a campaign.
It is, but I've told myself like I'll just have to do another story arc for another character if that happens, because that's just how it goes.
Yeah.
And even though it's more work and will take me longer and all that, that's just how it goes.
Yeah, or in that case, that player could create another character who's like his brother or his friend, and like so he's out for revenge for the death of the other
Both
player
of them
character.
now.
Yeah, both of them
Yeah.
now. So
Yeah,
there are ways to work around it. I think as a GM, you just have to plan, and you have to make sure that your plots don't intertwine too much with the actual characters, and if they do, have a way to include another character.
Yeah.
If you need to.
Well, I mean, definitely you have to use the stuff that you planned. Like, for example, if you're playing D&D, and I'm like, all right, when they get to the end of this road, they're going to fight 5 orcs. If the players go like, oh, we don't want to go down that road, we want to go to that tavern over there that's up the road this way. Well, those 5 orcs have now become 5 bandits. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And you just repurpose the story. One of my characters that just started playing, one of my players, he took the place of someone else that was like, oh yeah, I can't play anymore. I had everything prepared for that character, and I was like, all right, well, it's fine, it's all good. But now I'm repurposing that guy's plot line to work with this new guy's plot line.
Yeah. The other thing I would say is making their deaths meaningful. And once I had a character or a player whose character died, and I let him take one additional action, and he didn't do the final blow, but he did a pretty good blow to the enemy, and it allowed the other characters to kill him, so he felt like he went out shooting,
Yeah, definitely. You want to give him a purpose, because at least they'll leave like thinking like, yeah, he died or she died, but they went out fighting, or they went out with a good story.
Yeah.
Not like, oh, you you sprung a trap and it did 2d8 damage and now you're dead. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That's like the stupid springing a trap is the worst way to die.
Yeah.
But yeah. All right, that's GM advice. Before we end the podcast, we want to let you guys know that we are working on getting the podcast onto iTunes and Spotify. It's going to happen soon. And we have guests lined up. We're just working on it. We do have some confirmed. Do we have confirmed on your side? Yours is confirmed, right?
Well, confirmed, but we're working out a time when it'll work.
Exactly, yeah.
So-
I think we're better off just waiting till we have them like fully confirmed, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have a couple like that too that you know, are in the cyberpunk world or tabletop RPG world, and you know, we're working on getting them fully realized before we start teasing them. So just pay attention to our social media at the Dark Future 2
Yep.
on Twitter, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And then at John the Wise for me on Twitter. If you guys follow us, you'll get all kinds of updates on everything that we do. That's the best way to connect. Anything else that you wanted to talk about?
I guess I will add that me and John and High Shelf Gaming David have something in the works. It'll be a few months, but it's going to be pretty big. I'll say that.
Oh, it's huge. It's huge. And we're really, I mean, I'm excited about it. It's going to be awesome. So we're going to do that. Also, the three of us have started a Cyberpunk 2020 Red Discord channel. It's open to the public. We have looking for group tools. We have role-playing channels. We have a channel for GM advice. We have all kinds of stuff. So you guys are welcome to join. We'll put the link in the description for you guys.
Yep. And pertaining to our big project, we'll probably be dropping little hints about what it is in the coming weeks and months.
Ooh, I like that. I didn't know that. That's new to me.
Yeah, it'll be kind of like it's subtle. You probably won't figure it out, but
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be awesome. Hopefully it'll lead to other cool, awesome things.
Yeah.
Because we'll connect with people. So, all right. Anything else? Should we end this bad boy?
yeah, I think that'll do it. We've been going for a little while. This is a pretty healthy episode, I think.
Super healthy, dude. Super healthy, super necessary. And that's pretty much it. All right, guys. Thank you so much. We'll see you guys next time. Hopefully we'll try to be doing this every week. So stay tuned. All right. And we'll see you.
In the dark future.
Ooh. Maybe I should just let you do the whole sentence.
I think it's good that way.
And we'll see you in the dark future. All right. Bye.